to shoot this video for a long time. Let's see, span, 100 megahertz, camp, -20. Okay, I've really been looking forward to shooting this video. This is my KC901 handheld spectrum analyzer / network analyzer. It's a spectrum analyzer, a Smith chart, a waveform analyzer, a signal generator, it's a grid dip meter, it's tone generator, it's like 17, it's like a IFR and about 5 other things, all wrapped into a handheld unit. So right now we're going to start out at 0 megahertz and we're going to go all the way to 54 megahertz. Why is that important, you say? Because today we're going to talk about average versus peak. And we're going to talk about my bench radios and the reason they're set up the way they are versus a comp radio, something like this. It comes from Wolfman Electronics, by the way, aka Derail. Derail from Georgia. He's a buddy of mine. Derail sent this radio up. This is going to be on our workbench now. I've got a radio from R&R. I buy radio from everybody. But this one has got special sauce on the inside. I'm here to tell you. The look on the inside of this radio, I was like, damn. Somebody spent a lot of time on the inside of this radio. And there's quite a few guys out there, quite a few of the big boys are running these radios, and I understand why. Between looking at this, here, and here, and here, and here, and here, I totally understand why. But what we're going to really talk about today is peak versus average. Okay? Peak is a valid form of measurement, and so is average. Now, you can hear the CBers out there rolling over. Oh my God, Bbi, don't do it. I'm doing it. I'm not scared. This is an awesome radio. And because we got one of these awesome radios, I wanted to showcase it. Where to start? We're going to run this radio into the bench 2 pill, into the bench 4 pill, and we're going to show you the difference between your average run-of-the-mill radio versus a comp radio. Average run-of-the-mill radio that does roughly the same amount of power as this radio, and how it affects all your different measurements. The amplifier is as dumb as a bag of sticks. I say this over and over and over again. You only get out of an amplifier what you put into it. The amplifier has to be horrifically out of tune and made with wildly inappropriate materials for it to create harmonics. I did a 2-part video on Let's Talk About Harmonics, and I stood there and I talked about everything that had anything to do with the spectrum analyzer. I'll put a link to this in the description below for this video if you guys want to get caught up and then come back and rewatch this. So hit the pause button or continue to watch. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me. Go watch those other ones and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay. Amplifier doesn't cause bleed over, doesn't cause splatter. It doesn't cause any of the problems that you think. It only does what you tell it to do. It amplifies what you put into it. You can create an amplifier that is very harmonic driven. This is true. But you won't see the results in the watt meter. Okay? It'll give you false wattage as far as your reflex can be all over the place, because the RF that comes out of the amplifier is not going to be resonant with your admission point, or otherwise your antenna, and it's going to show up as reflag. Now, because we're going into a true dummy load over here, a big Bird 10,000 watt dummy load, I can pump anything into it and it's going to show up passing through, but when it gets on the other end, you're going to have all kinds of problems. If the amplifier is widely out of tune and it's going to make harmonics, you're not going to see your peak watts, nor are you going to see the average power that's going to get produced, because the amplifier is going to restrict itself, because it's going to be rectifying signal that's all over the place. And usually when you get the amplifier to that point where it starts to create harmonics, it all actually sits there and oscillates, and it doesn't need anything as an input signal to start the problem. Just a quick key, and the amplifier will sit there and self-oscillate, and eventually it'll break down. So I'm here to knock down a wall. We'll call it like a wall break, the 4th dimensional wall break. It's like you've never seen anybody ever talk to the camera in Hollywood, right? Unless you're watching Deadpool. No, top videos of all time. Anywho, we're going to get back on track here. Now, you can have a comp radio that produces the power like this radio produces, and it be spotlessly clean. Now, you can oversaturate your carrier with the radio. Now hold on, let me pause. 99% of the time when you have harmonics, like, oh my God, he's bleeding on my 15 channels. Usually what causes that is the front end receiver in your radio isn't discriminate enough to throw away the amount of signal that it's receiving, usually. That's 99% of the time. The other 1% is the radio that starts the RF chain of events. So the radio is the thing that creates the baseline signal, and then it moves forward down the chain. The radio, the signal that it supplies to the amplifier unit itself, whatever your amplifier it is, tube, solid state, LDMOS, MOSFET, CMOS, doesn't matter. It will put into it and amplify whatever you put into it. So if you put crap in, like say a crap from a crap radio, this is not a crap radio, by the way, and I'm going to prove that here in a minute with a spectrum analyzer. This is an awesome radio. You put crap in these things, you're going to get crap signal out. Okay? That's just basic common sense. There's no old-timer, hammy lore to it. The amplifier doesn't create harmonics. It can't. Now, what is common practice these days, and has been for a long time, is that in most solid-state amplifiers, they put low-pass and high-pass filtration in line. So they'll put a low-pass filter sometimes on the input with a band control switch. So if you want to work just 80, it drops everything below the 80 megahertz band. It pre-notches that out. And in post amplification, you'll have a high pass filter. So anything above 80 megahertz, it'll notch that out and not have a resonant load for the RF to pass through internally on the amplifier. That's how a low pass and a high pass filter work. Okay? Is that they only allow a small window of frequency that RF can travel down. It takes the rest of it, nulls it to ground, and turns it to heat. That's all it does. Most of the equipment that we run these days, like the ICOM 7300s and so forth, the signal is so clean that is being created by the radios that there's no drift harmonics. There's nothing that's coming from the radio that can cause really the use of a low pass filter. Now, you can use a cavity tune circuit to really notch out specifically your upper and the lower portion of the frequency bandwidth you want to allocate. That's how they do it in the broadcast industry. It's not really realistic for us that I mean, if you want to go to channel 21, you got to retune your cavity your cavity cans, which is a pain in the ass, by the way. But we're going to sit here on channel 20, and we're going to do a couple little tests. So now that we understand just the basic operations of harmonics and how harmonics are actually created, the other thing I want to talk to you about is your average numbers versus peak. Your peak number is your absolute overall, full-scale, full-blown, maximum amount of juice, power output you're going to get out of the device. It is a valid form of measurement, and it comes from your average number measurement. You have your root mean square measurement, and then you have your average number measurement. Now, there's a long-going debate, RMS power, average power, EP power. They're all different valid forms of measurement. There's a reason that I show both on the workbench. I'm not a big fan of the peak, nor am I a big fan of average. On my own station, I run average meters on everything because I just don't care, okay? I got guys that want to see the peak numbers. I got other guys that want to see average numbers. That's what they want to see. So we're going to show everything in average and in peak today. And I'm not trying to sell with peak numbers, but peak wattage is a real measured form of power. Your average number, otherwise that scale there in the middle, because I hardly ever turn a peak kit on that's for it, and it's an actual bird peak kit, is driven by the amount of distortion. And when I say distortion, I choose that word very carefully, because I'm going to see people freak out. Oh my God, distortion, he's talking about distortion, he's admitting it in his own video. No, I'm not. What I'm telling you is that you have your base carrier, and then you inject your amplitude modulation into it, which is distortion. Okay? You induce your modulation into the carrier. Now, your distortion factor that comes, what most people consider to be distortion, is going to come from the amount of audio that you put into that signal. I'm here to tell you the human ear can't hear anything under 300% distortion. So you can go all the way up to 300% injected audio into that amplified carrier before the human ear is going to start to be able to detect any distortion in the signal. Now, if you guys want to go off and watch some of these other guys' videos talk about that and pyre on for 15 days at a time and lose their chicken and spin their cookie on it, have at it. I'm not going to waste another one of my minutes talking about this. What I am going to show you now is the difference between a radio that produces a lot of average power, otherwise it's got a lot of injected audio into it, that is spectrally clean, by the way, versus every radio I have on my workbench. Look, guys, and I know all the builders watch my videos, every single one of you guys, and I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you all being subscribed to the channel. I think it's awesome. I thank you for tuning in. Listen, guys, we can have these hot rod radios on our benches, and we can make our average numbers look awesome with these great peak numbers if we want. The average radio operator doesn't have one of these. Now that I'm putting this out on Front Street, I feel sorry for my buddy D-Rail. When I talked to him on the phone, I said, you ready for what this is going to do to you? I call it the Bbi Effect. You know, I'm going to put this out there, and he's going to get a ton of phone calls. He is. And he's going to get a lot of orders from this. He just is. It's the way it works, you guys. You produce a good product, somebody like me gets a hold of it. I want to show it to everybody. So now right down here, right about in here, that's the phone number you call. Don't call me. Call this number right here. And I'll make sure to show it again. Have faith. Most CB radio operators don't have hot rod radios. They've got literally straight out of the box. Maybe if somebody knows how to turn up a mic gain pot, or maybe somebody's figured out how to tune a limiter, or add an ACM mod or some other kind of funky fucking thing to the radio, they've got a little bit of a pep up. Most people don't have radios like this. So for me to have this hanging on the bench, which this will be hanging on the bench, it'll probably be here, probably in here someplace. Oh yeah, hey Brian Smith, I need another bird meter, by the way, buddy, and I need a 5-watt slug. And it needs to be 2 through 30 megahertz, by the way, not 25 through 60. If you could help me out with that there, my friend. Truck CB Sales, by the way. He arguably is one of the larger CB shops on Facebook, and Wolfman CB is probably arguably one of the larger CB shops in the South. Big Rig Radio, who is arguably one of the largest CB shops in the mid-Southwest, are all partners over here. And Wolfman, welcome to the club. My buddy D-Rail. I'm going to start working with him, man. He's a good cat. I send work out to Brian and Big Rig Radio like it's going out of style. And Bud, I'm giving you a little pat on the back because this radio is absolutely jaw-dropping. All my radios on my workbench are set up for midstream. They are not designed to do anything insane amount of watts. They're not designed to have insane amount of audio, inserted audio into them. I use basic off-the-shelf microphones. The only thing I can't stand is I cut the little rubber bumper off because after a whole day of holding this thing up to my lip going, audio, I have a black mustache. Can't stand that. My wife looks at me and laughs. What can I say? It is what it is. So every radio I've ever had up on this workbench, which this doesn't change, I've got the 25 to 20 to 30 watt radio, the 90 watt radio, and the 125 watt radio. Between the myriad of the three, you can usually get it done all the way around. So now we're going to take a Cobra 29 and we're going to put it up against a very lightly modified 2950. It's been frequency converted and it's got a standard modulation mod done to it. and that's it. And that's currently what we have hooked up. So we've got this going into the Bird 43 with a 50 watt slug in it going forward, going into the 2-pill, going into the 4-pill, 2 driving 4. This is a 2879 box going into a 2879 box Toshiba. The reason we're doing the bench 2-pill into this one is because I want to overdrive this as much as we can. I want to show you something. The peak wattage from this radio to this radio is exactly the same. So we're going to do this in one cut. I'm not going to put the camera down on the bench and plug nothing up. We're going to do this all in one shot. So we've got our spectrum analyzer set up. Now let's see, we got this set to run. We are in run mode. We're going to do our baseline shot. We're at negative 20 dB. Hello, audio. So now we can see some very slight harmonics come off the bench radio. We're seeing a little signal spike over here and another one over here. Let me go to span. And we're going to take this down to 10 megahertz here. Okay? So we're 10 megahertz wide now. Hello, audio. Now, I don't care where you go in this world. We're going to hit stop over here, by the way. And now I'm going to pull out my pickup. We're going to set it on a workbench. This is a 5-watt slug. It's the same one I've always been using. This is in 1X, peak envelope, average power, 1,000-watt slug, 1,000-watt slug. That is a pretty clean radio overall. I mean, there's a couple little bit of secondaries and a tiny little bit of noise, but it's nothing drastic, okay? And that's what I have to have. I have to have a radio that's fairly clean on a workbench. I can't have it over like cranked out to the 9s. So let's go ahead and get our base numbers out of the way. And then we're going to start showing you this radio. Turn on 2-pill, turn on the 4-pill. Grab the microphone. Here's our input power in average. Hello, audio. About 10 watts input. Turn on the peak kit. Hello, audio. About 30-35 watts. Okay. Peak kit back off. Here's our output power in average. Hello, audio. 300 watts. Here's our peak power. It's off the chart. What we're going to do is we're going to click that into 2X. Now full deflection, you guys. Right here's 1,000 watts, halfway through the meter's linearity, and over here's 2,000. So we're going to have 1,000, 12, 14, 16, 18, so on and so on. Hello, audio. About 1,200 watts. Hello, audio. Okay. 300 bird, 1,200 watts. Remember that. I'm going to turn the amplifiers off. I'm going to hang the mic up. Oh, and you guys want to know how I get that down? I'll show how I get that down here in a minute. I can actually get that radio to come back by changing mics. It makes that big of a difference. I can get the radio to only do 20 watts and normally run a 2950 on it, or RK56 microphone. I changed from that Ranger mic, and the wattage on that radio almost doubles. So I can go put the Ranger mic on and I can get 35 watts out of it. I put an RK56, I get 20 out of it. It is what it is. Okay. Now, as you might hear, I hooked up the coax to the bird meter, which is hooked up to the amp, which has got ground. This radio has a blower on the inside of it to keep the heat off the internal parts. It's blowing on the audio chip, which has got a big modified heatsink on it, and this thing is heavy. The whole back end of this thing is full of copper heatsink. That's all I'm going to say about the inside of it. It is sick. Like I said, Call this number right here to get this radio. Okay. I'm going to pull the 5-watt slug out. I'm going to put in my pickup. I'm going to turn this to run. Hello. Now, this radio has got an amplitude limiter modulation AMC circuit in it, okay? That's off. This is off, okay? That's on. Hello. Now, if we brought the gain down, or brought the gain up, and came down in it, you'd see that the sidebands have been fully suppressed by the limiter circuit that's in this right now, okay? The other way that you can suppress your sidebands, otherwise what people call distortion, if it occurs within 5 kc side to side, it's a sideband harmonic. You just simply back your mic gain down. That's all you do, back your mic gain down. Okay? We're going to disconnect the limiter. That's a clean friggin' radio, you guys. Let's do the other end of our spectrum shot. We're going to do span, and then we're going to go full span. So up here in this top corner, you'll see 0 megahertz through 54 megahertz, straight through. There's no other signal present. And up here in the corner, you can see our signal reference. Okay, that's our noise floor bottom. If there's any kind of signal that is present out there, like I just seen a little bit of noise, I'm not even keyed up, just a little bit of noise popped in down here about 10-15 megahertz. It would show up on the spectrum analyzer. So now to protect my analyzer, I'm going to put that to pause. Okay. Put the 5-watt slug back in. Now look. We're going to leave that full tilt. Oh hell no, here. I'll put the limiter in line. It's idolically pure. Pure sine wave is coming out of this right now. Pure. Pure. As I proved with this. Now we can go, I might come back and revisit this and do another noise floor test with this, because we can achieve a higher scan rate, which is a little bit more resolution than this. This gives you a pretty good idea what's going on, taking into account how much this little handheld unit costs. And I've got 2 of them, because you can use this as it's a very high-end antenna design device. It's primarily geared for building antennas, but anyhow, let's go look at what we're doing here for power. We're going to do the same test as we did before. Nothing has changed. Oh, wait a minute. And I will leave that up to 2x. So everything's the same as where we left it at the end of this last test. Hello, audio, audio. About 10 bird, right? But BBI, I thought you said this is a hot rod radio. Turn the limiter off. Hello, audio. So picked up 5 extra bird with the limiter. Okay. Let's look at our peak numbers now. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Roughly the same peak numbers with the limiters on. Take the limiter out. Hello. 50 watts. Now watch what happens over here. Remember what we were getting? Getting 300 bird here. We're getting 1200 peak watts here. Hello. Hello. We're getting our 1200 watts peak envelope. That has not changed. Now I want the haters to listen to what I'm saying. The peak numbers haven't changed because it's an absolute form of measurement. Okay? It's a total field package. But look at what happened over here. Audio. We doubled the amount of RMS power coming from the amplifiers by changing the radio. Think about that for a second. But there's got to be some sleight of hand, BBI. You must be overdriving it. Nope. Check it out. You can look at all the meters at the same time. But 35 watts of peak power, or average power, or pardon me, peak power. The same that the 2950 produced. Twice the average watts. Now remember, this is supposed to be the dirty version, right? This is with the limiters removed, and even though it's almost completely sine pure here. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Now why, with the drive level, look at our drive level and peak. Now as we're sitting here doing this last test, we're bumping up to 700 average. Now why is it? Because we've increased our drive by taking the limiter out. We're putting more carrier, more audio, more everything into it. We're only seeing a 100 watt increase here, but we're seeing 20 more watts of drive. Because we've reached the absolute maximum of field saturation at 14 volts for the transistors that we're using as an amplification device. They cannot produce any more power. Now, I've always said this over and over and over again, but nobody ever wants to hear me. 1200 peak watts on both radios. The average numbers have doubled, but if you look at it fully saturated, 1200 watts, 650 watts to 700 watts. 2.2 times equals that. This is an awesome radio. It's clean. It's retarded loud. Now, there's a couple other little tricks that you can do, and D-Rail will explain them to you, about having echo inside the radio. Using the echo amplifier board chain to increase your audio even a little bit more. But like I said, call this number here. Ask for D-Rail, and he'll get you one of these radios. Or his brother. I'm telling you, those two guys that run that shop, brilliant guys. And I'm really proud to call them my friends. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. That's on 14 volts flat, you guys. 600 bird. Hello, audio. Hello. Food for thought. Gentlemen, my name is Bbi, and I just had to put this out on Front Street. I get really tired of listening to these guys debate this back and forth on Facebook, and I wanted to do a video about it. Your average numbers are so hardly driven by the amount of modulation that you're injecting into your baseline carrier to bring up your average numbers. Period. Peak is a real number. Average, peak. Believe what you want. I'll see you guys. Good luck to you, D-Rail. Phone's gonna ring a bunch, man. Gentlemen, my name is Bbi. Without a shadow of a doubt, I am the biggest mud duck in Idaho. Come check us out. Without a shadow of a doubt, I am the biggest mud duck in Idaho. Come check us out, www.bbiamps.com. And remember, don't call me for this radio. I don't sell these. I'm not a vendor for them. I had to pay for this radio full bore because that's how business works. You pay for the products that are on your bench. Just, it is what it is. I don't get freebies. I don't do promos of stuff. I don't have people. I've had people call up and offer me sponsorship like Tektronix and them guys, and not interested. Thanks. Nope. Call this number right here, and you'll be able to have yourself one of these too. And really, this isn't the most hopped up of the most hopped up of the most hopped up that you can get from these guys. This is literally just, there's about 3 more levels above this. And I didn't want to, I was like, nope. I just want something that will do a ton of average power, and I want to be able to show it on the spectrum analyzer. Anyhow, guys, I appreciate y'all's support. I appreciate you sitting here listening to me talk. I'll see you guys. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.